Hi there, it's Graham Moore, and I'm really pleased to be with you now. And I'm particularly pleased that and honoured that I was invited to give this presentation to you by Her Highness Sheikha Meytha bint Ahmed Al Nahyan. And of course, this is all part of the Meytha bint Ahmed Al Nahyan Foundation and all the great work that that foundation does. So let me tell you a little bit about me, Graham Moore. Well, I have been living in the UAE since 2009. I first came in 2007. I've presented in all the GCC countries and many others. I'm a professional speaker, an executive coach, and that's what I've been doing for 25 years. If you're trying to guess, I'm actually from Australia. I'm not from the UK as most people think. So what are we here to talk about today? We're here to talk about time pressure. But there's a couple of other elements that we're going to go through. The first, of course, that makes all of this up, time. Goals are a part of this. And that word that was up there a moment ago, pressure. But when they come together, we often get time pressure. Isn't it interesting that now you're watching me in a way that you wouldn't have done 20 years ago, so maybe even 10 years ago. Things have changed so much. You're able to watch this and hear this remotely. If we were doing this 20 years ago, you would have to drive to a venue. You'd have to take your time to get there and be there so that you could see me and hear me. But now, guess what? Technology allows us to do some amazing things. We have 5G for our telephone. We have fast cars. We have things that happen in our life that make things go really easy for us. And guess what? We still say, I need more time. There's not enough time in the day. And yet we're saving you time now by being able to listen to this and watch this wherever you are. You didn't have to come to a particular venue to watch it and listen. And yet, oh my gosh, time is against me. Now, I talk about now, 2020. And we talk about the time pressures that we have now, but I'm also going to say that 5 years ago, we also had time pressure. Next year, we're going to have time pressure. We've always got, in that context, the pressure of time. Even though we are speeding things up, there's still time pressure. And I know that people still say, well, it was busy last year and it was busy the year before. Yeah. Each year is busy. I don't think any of you listening now could say, actually, 2 years ago it was pretty quiet. I had plenty of time. We all have this issue with time unless we handle it correctly. So, have you heard this expression? If I only had one more hour in the day, life would be so much easier for me. I got to tell you, after all these years, they are not making another hour. That is it. You've got 1 hour in the day. 24 hours in the day. You don't get any more. That's it. What we've got to do is to make the most of this time that we have allocated to us. Now, this gentleman, Jackson Brown, is an American writer, and he said some years ago, don't say you don't have enough time. You have exactly the same number of hours in the day that were given to Pasteur, who was a wonderful chemist and scientist, Michelangelo, the artist, Mother Teresa, we all know Mother Teresa, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, and Albert Einstein. And I will also say this, in this part of the world, you've got the same number of hours in the day that Sheikh Zayed had when he helped create this wonderful place with Sheikh Rashid. He had the same number of hours, they all did. We have the same number of hours, it's just the way we utilise and use those hours. Now, of course, for years, there have been time management programs, and someone might say to you, you need to manage your time. Well, guess what? You can't manage time. It is physically impossible to manage time. You can manage money, you can manage people, you can manage physical resources, but you can't manage time. It is moving all the way. You can't manage time. That's the point. So what have you got to do? It's quite simple. Time management is self-management. It's all about you, the way you respond to this. It's not about this physical thing called time, because time doesn't, it's not something that you can manage. It's about you, and that's what I want to talk about today. So the first question I have is, do you value your time? Do you understand what that means? Do you value your time? And do you value other people's time? So in managing other people's time, what do I really mean? Well, it's as simple as, and I might come to this later, it's as simple as, for instance, if you set a time to meet someone, to have an appointment, guess what time you are there? You're there at the time that you set. You value their time as well as valuing your own time. This is critical. It's got to start with you managing and valuing your own time and valuing the time of the people that you are meeting and that you're working with. Always. I'm going to come to that in a little more detail later on, when this decides it's going to move to the next position, which it doesn't want to do. Do I know how I spend my time? So how do you spend your time? Oh, I'm just so busy. I've got no idea of what's going on. It's just, I've got all this pressure. I've got this. How do you spend your time? I've got a question that I'm going to ask you later about identifying the time and how you spend it so that you can save time. So here's a question. This is about valuing other people's time. What does it mean to be on time? It means on time. It's not, oh, well, I'll come later. It means now. If you've got a time appointment with someone, you come at that time. This is critical. It's valuing their time. And I know that some people think, oh, it doesn't matter if I'm late. Well, kind of does. I want to talk about meetings later, but let me just give you an example of something that happened some years ago. When I was with a colleague, we were waiting for someone to join us. And this is the second meeting that we'd had in this organisation. And for the second time, one of the key people involved in our discussions with that organisation was late by 15 minutes. Wow. I was a little concerned that my colleague, who was trying to be nice to this person who was late, said, oh, don't worry, you didn't miss anything, even though we had already started and been talking for 15 minutes about the matters that concerned us all. She said, it doesn't matter, you haven't missed anything. This, to me, is like giving this person a license to be late every time. I'll talk to you later, and we're talking about meetings, about how you handle that. But I don't want to forgive someone for being late. They should be making the most of their time and looking after your time to be there at the time that's specified, or as close to that as possible. But this person, he'd done it a second time, and it kind of indicated that he was a habit, that this person didn't really value either his time or the time of the people who he was going to meet with. Not good for business, not good for relationships. So what happens if you're not time? As I said, it's bad for business, it's bad for the relationship, and affects the trust involved in the relationship. There's a knock-on effect if you're late, because if you have a meeting or an appointment with someone and they are late, you're going to be late, or you're going to be tightening up the amount of time that you've got to talk. So absolutely try and be on time all the time. So let's talk about goals. This is all part of the time that we're going to manage correctly. What are goals? Well, goals are things that we are aiming to achieve, and they're going to be likely something that affects how we're going to perform for the year or even over a shorter period. You may have heard of SMART goals, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about SMART goals, but I just want to remind you, if you've already heard about them, or just give you a quick overview of SMART goals. They are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. This is what a SMART goal is. We need to have goals that then we manage the time. And let me now show you the next part of this process. Objectives achieve goals. So we have the overall goals that we want, and then we have the objective to achieve that. The objectives are going to be yearly objective. Let me give you an example. If a salesman has been given his yearly target, he then should be breaking that down into 6 monthly, quarterly, monthly, and daily objectives to achieve the bigger goal for the year. And this is about planning. We need to have these goals that are set, and then we have the objectives for each of those periods: yearly, 6 monthly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily, that govern our activities. It's like the plan that we have for all that we're going to have to do to achieve the outcome, and of course, managing our time. Planning is essential. if you're going to be effective with your time, it is essential that you plan your time. You plan the month, you plan the week, you plan the day. So I really believe it's important when we're talking to the staff that we're leading, if we're indeed leading staff, that they know that there needs to be a plan for the day that they're operating with us, that there needs to be a plan for the week, there needs to be a plan for the month. And I say that to you as well, whatever business you are in, whatever the work it is that you're doing, those three elements of planning the day, the week and the month are critical. If you don't plan the day for a start, what are you going to do? You're just going to be reactive to things that are happening? No, you need to be involved in planning the day so that you can then manage how that day is going to be successful for you or not. And if you don't achieve those things in the day, then you make sure that the next day they are on the list of things, which we'll come to in a moment. Let's talk about specific strategies to find extra time in your day. Time in your day. I want you to think about the time wasters in your day. Time wasters. What do you mean by time wasters? Well, the way we do this effectively is to do a time management audit. And you're the auditor. What this means in simple terms is that you diarise, even on a 15-minute basis, all the things that you've done during the course of the day. I've had a meeting for 15 minutes. I've had a meeting for half an hour. I tended to emails. That took me 20 minutes. Write all of these down and then look at the elements in that audit that you've done that you can take out of your day. What are the things that are in that day that I shouldn't be worrying about? What are the things in that day that are wasting my time? Why did I take so long to achieve this when I could have done it in a shorter period of time? Ideally, to do this over a 2-day period is going to give you a better snapshot of the activities that specifically happen and the time that those things take to be done. And then you can say, was that valuable time? Was that effective time? Or can I eliminate that totally? Do a time management audit on your day and then take out the things that are going to save you time, the things that you don't need to be doing. Identify those time wasters and then get rid of them. There are things that we often do that we say are repetitive, that are wasting my time. Why did I need to do that again? I did it yesterday. Why am I wasting time on this? Get rid of it, move it away. But we can't effectively do this until we do what I've said is called a time management audit. Your goal is to identify 1 hour of time wasters in your day. Remember I said at the start, if I only had an extra hour in the day, I would get a whole lot more done. This is how you get that extra hour. No, we're not giving you an extra hour on the clock, but you can find an hour of your time by looking at where your efficiencies are, looking at where your time is being wasted, and then eliminate those things. In a little while, I'm going to be talking about some of the time wasters and how we can get rid of those, but you should be doing this to identify, was it really necessary that I did this? Probably not. Did I get great value out of doing that? Probably not. Was it important that I did this? Yes, it was. Look at the things that are important for you to do in your day and let go of those other things. Some of the things that we have in our day, we just do them. And when we look at the day objectively, when we look at doing a time management audit, we can say, I really don't need to be doing that. It is costing me time. I'm not getting value out of it. And of course, that then leads to pressure, which we're going to be talking about later. Look at the daily time savers in your day. What are the things that I can do that are going to save me time? What are the things that are doing that are wasting my time, and get rid of the time wasters? No, I don't need to go and have that extra coffee with that person. No, I don't need to be on Facebook for as long as that. So get rid of those things and then tighten up the other areas where you've got more time for you. So here's the all-important to-do list. So, do you do a to-do list? How important is a to-do list? It's critical. The to-do list is your plan for the day. It is the course that you're going to chart during your day from one point to another, all the things that you need to do. Now, I've had people over the years say to me, Graham, I do a to-do list and then something happens, my manager comes in and says that there's a problem that I need to deal with, and so my to-do list goes out the window. Well, what happens when you've finished what your manager has asked you to do, you come back and you pick up on the to-do list and continue on from that. What happens, of course, when you've finished at the end of the day, you identify the things that you didn't finish that day and you move them onto your to-do list for the next day. So the question often arises is, when should I do the to-do list? Should I do it at the end of the day that I'm working for the next day, or should I do it at the start of the day, the next day? Well, my preference would be to do it at the end of the day so that you know the things that you cleared off today and you know the things that you need to be doing tomorrow. So my strong recommendation is at the end of the day, if you're working in an office, if you're working from home, wherever you're working, at the end of the day, when you're finishing, allow 10, maybe 15 minutes to go over what you did in that day and go over the things that are important to move to the next day. I got these done, I got that done, I didn't finish that, move it through to the next day. One of the things that does, of course, is clears up in your mind any pressures that you need to worry about for the next day. So often people don't categorise or list those things beforehand, and yet in the evening they will worry about what they've got to do for the next day. I can assure you that if you've made a list of the things that you need to do tomorrow, your mind will be focusing less on the jumble of other activities that are coming to your mind and will allow you to focus on the things that are important on your list. And in fact, sometimes we develop worry or concern about some things that I've got to do tomorrow. If you write them down on a list and that's your plan for tomorrow, when you wake up the next morning, your mind is clear and you know what you've got to do. That's really, really important. So to-do list, very important. Strong recommendation, do it at the end of the day. But then I know we've got to go further. And it's not just the day, but on a Thursday afternoon, just take 15 minutes to do a to-do list for the following week. So what do I need to do next week? What are my objectives for next week? And you might categorize those as major objectives. You might categorize them as daily objectives, but set out a plan for next week. If you don't have a plan, how are you going to achieve the outcome? As I said earlier, a plan is essential. So make sure at the end of each day, you do a to-do list for the next day. Make sure that on the Thursday, you do a to-do list for the next week. And of course, if you do a to-do list on the Thursday for the next week, you can then start to schedule appointments. You can then start to plan specific things for the next week so that when you start work on Sunday, you've got far greater control over the things that you need to do. Of course, we know that there are last-minute changes. We know that you get called in to see your manager. We know that things occur that you don't have as much control over. But the more you have control over these elements, the more effective you're going to be and the less stress you're going to have, or pressure. We'll talk about that in a moment. So here are three areas which are probably the biggest areas of concern: emails, meetings, inefficiencies. So we all know we have to deal with emails. We all know we've got the emails that we've got to deal with. We all know that we've got meetings to attend. Don't we love meetings? We all know that there are inefficiencies that occur. So for me, these are three areas that I'm going to suggest that we spend a little bit of time talking about now to see if we can make some improvements in the way these three areas impact on you. So here's some tips about managing emails. And I know that people say, I get 300 emails a day, Graham. How do I manage all of those emails? Here's one tip about emails particularly that is going to help you. When you read the email, if it requires action it that time. So often people will read the email and then think, I'll go back later and I'll then reply to the email. If you need supporting information, if the information that you need to have as part of the email that you're sending back will take you time to send, certainly maybe park it and then go back to dealing with that email later. But the best way to handle emails is when you read it, respond. Because we know that there is an extra time lag when people park the email and come back to it later. Why? Well, for a start, they've got to read the email again. So if it's taken you 2 minutes to read the email first time, then you come back to do it again, you're going to read it again. So when the email comes in, when you first read it, that's when you should be doing the reply to the email. Here's another big one for me in terms of emails. I really believe that you should be careful about people that you add into your distribution list. We know that in organisations so often you are included in an email that 400 other people have been included in, or 50. A lot of other people are included in the address list, and it may not concern you, and yet it's going to take you time to read it. So please be careful who you add into your email list. Don't just add all your friends and all the people in the office and your entire address book, because that's going to waste their time. Be really careful about what you put in there. Emails require careful attention, giving specific information. One thing that I also believe is important when it comes to managing emails is this. So often when we're working, we'll hear a little ping or a noise from the laptop or the computer that says, you've got an email. And what do? We stop doing what we're doing and we go to the email. This is a waste of time. Oh, but Graham, it's an important email. Well, it might be, but it can wait a little bit. Here's a strong suggestion. Rather than be reactive to each email when it comes in, set aside time every day, the same time, to attend to your emails. Someone that I coach and been coaching for a while, at the end of his email, whenever it comes in, it says as a standard line, I check my emails twice a day. And he even mentions the time. And he says, if I don't immediately respond, please know that I only check my emails twice a day. The world is not going to end if you don't immediately respond to that email. Well, it usually won't end. So manage your time, manage your day, rather than being dragged away or have yourself distracted because an email's come in and I need to deal with it. You know, I know this in the corporate world where we're working these days, and this has been happening a lot. Someone will send an email to the person whose desk is 3 cubicles away. And then 5 minutes later, they'll say, have you seen my email? Well, ease up on that. Can we do this? Can we allow people time to do this? One of the things that I like to do with emails is that if I have a time that I need the response, I will indicate that to the person in the email. I'd like to have this information, please. Boom, boom, boom. Or I'd like to set up an appointment. Boom, boom. Can we do this? Can you, if it's possible, can you please reply by 10 o'clock tomorrow? Set a time for them to come back to you. Don't assume that they will think that they must reply immediately. This is about you taking a little more control. Emails are great, but they take over our lives, and we should not be reactive to each email. We should be setting time aside to reply to the emails. And when we see the email come in, the best time to reply to it is when it comes in. And the other point I'm making about emails is try and get yourself off lists. Try and not have emails sent to you all the time just because you're on a list, because it's going to waste your time to read it. And don't add other people onto your list because you're going to be wasting their time. So be respectful of them and their time as well. Meetings. Oh my gosh, we've got to have meetings. And of course, now we're in a time of Zoom meetings. You know, I hear people say, Graham, I have continuous back-to-back Zoom meetings. This is not good. This is not good at all. And generally, the meetings, in my view, are not effective. Yes, we need to have meetings. We love meetings. Some people love meetings too much. I was made aware just last week of someone who said, that the senior person in the organisation will set up meetings on now Zoom. Before they were group phone calls, and those meetings could go for 4 hours or 5 hours. I've got to tell you, you don't hold people's attention very much when you've got meetings for 4 hours. So how do we manage meetings? Well, I have a process which I call conducting meetings in half the time. Is that something that would be helpful for you? Would you like to conduct a meeting in half the time? Well, here's what we do. We've got to have a structure to this. There's a process and some things that I'm going to suggest you do, which are quite simple, but you do it all the time and you will improve not only the meeting efficiency, but the time that you're actually in that meeting. These are my rules of effective meetings. The first is this: only invite people who need to be there. Don't invite others just because you think that it'd be nice to have them. And I'm going to suggest this as well. If you are invited to a meeting and you don't think it's going to provide value for you, my strong suggestion is that you ask the person who's invited you or requested that you attend the meeting, Mohammed, I just want to check, is it really important that I need to attend that meeting? He might say, well, I just thought that you might like to pick up the information that we're talking about. Or he might say, no, there's 2 points that are really important that I need to have you there for. Okay, great, I will be there. But check in, do I really need to be there? Otherwise, you're just taking up space in the room and wasting your time. So only invite people who need to be there and only attend if you know that it's important that you go to the meeting. Number 2 is probably one of the biggest ones for me. Meetings start on time. If you schedule a meeting for 9 o'clock, I say to people in the workshops that I'm delivering, 9 o'clock meeting, what time does the meeting start? It starts at 9 o'clock. It might start at 2 minutes after 9, but it starts on time. Oh, but Graham, people are always late here. Well, guess what? If you schedule a 9 o'clock start, or whatever time, 9 o'clock start time, and you then start the meeting with the 2 people or so who are there, those who haven't arrived on time, when they do come, will realise that perhaps they should have been here on time. And next time you call a meeting, there's a good chance that they'll be closer to the start time. Now, I have a couple of examples of senior people and the way they've conducted meetings. I heard a few months ago about a gentleman in Saudi, senior position, who schedules a meeting time for whatever it is, says, yes, the meeting will start at 10 o'clock. If you are not in the meeting room at 10 o'clock, you don't get in. The door is closed and you're not allowed to come in late. So that's a fairly rigid approach. But what it means is that people who've been invited make the extra effort to be there and start the meeting on time. I know what can happen. You're walking down the corridor. If you're in an office, you're walking down the corridor to that meeting room and someone says, oh, Ali, I've got a couple of questions for you. Have you got time to answer this? And you get involved in a conversation in the corridor when in fact you should be in the meeting room. So in that situation, it's polite to say, Ali, I've got a meeting I need to go to. Can I see you immediately after my meeting? Yeah, sure. Great. And you make sure that you're in the meeting on time. The third point is meetings must have an agenda. Otherwise, it's just a social engagement. We're getting together to have coffee and check up on everybody's health and family. Meetings have a purpose. They must have an agenda. And you really should send, if you're conducting the meeting, you should send the agenda to the people who are coming to the meeting. It might be 5 bullet points, maybe less. What happens when they receive that agenda? For a start, they know what the meeting is about. They know what's going to be covered in the meeting. They hopefully realise that if they need to prepare anything or bring anything that's related to the agenda, that they need to do that. So that when you're in the meeting and you point to someone and say, oh, how's this point going? And they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't prepare. I didn't know that I needed to. Well, it's on the agenda. This is actually establishing a behaviour with people that they will then fall in line. When they know that the behaviour that you're asking for is, firstly, that they are only going to be invited to the meeting if they need to be there. You're not wasting their time, or you don't want to waste their time by inviting them to be there. They will get to know pretty quickly that the meetings start on time. They will know that the meeting has an agenda. Now, let's say you've started the agenda and someone comes in 10 minutes late. This is a big never restart the meeting when someone is late. Don't do that. What does it do when you start the meeting after everybody's been through 10 or 15 minutes of discussion? Oh, okay, what we've talked about is this and this and this. Sorry, you're late. We'll talk, yeah, thank you. And you go over that. You're wasting the time of the people who are on time and who have contributed to the meeting outcome. And so don't go back. Here's my suggestion. If someone is late, there may well have been a valid reason why they were late. The CEO might have grabbed them and said, I need to sort something out for 10 minutes. There's a valid reason. There might have been another valid reason. But you don't recap or go over what you've already talked about in the meeting. Here's what I suggest you do. You say, oh, Mariam, would you catch up with Sally afterwards and talk about what we talked about? Great, thank you very much. Would you fill him in on the, thank you very much. So someone in the meeting is briefed to just spend a few minutes going over the points. If that person needs to be filled in on what you've talked about, don't stop the meeting and go over it, please. Waste of time. This is a discipline that's required. And when you have this discipline, then you get the result. The next point is to stick to the agenda. You've sent an agenda to the people in which you have indicated around about the length of time that you're going to talk on each matter on the agenda. When you have that agenda and you're going through it and talking about the relevant points in the meeting on the agenda, there will be times when someone might try to sidetrack you or wide track you and move to another area that's not really related to the agenda. Here's what you need to do if you're running the meeting. If it's your meeting, you need to say, Abdullah, I'm not sure that that's entirely relevant to what we need to do here. Maybe we'll need to set another meeting to talk about that. Oh, yes, you're right. Okay, fine. We'll stick to the agenda. Stick to the points that you set out that are crucial or important for this meeting. So you control that. Now, let me just suggest this. Let's just say that you are one of the meeting attendees. You haven't called the meeting. And dear Abdullah, who's a really nice guy, starts to take the meeting off course and starts to talk about something that's not really entirely relevant. What you should be doing politely is to say to the person who's running the meeting, Mohammed, I just want to check in. Is this really relevant to what we're here for? Oh, no, Abdullah, we need to stick to the agenda. Okay, control it. Politely, professionally. You're not putting anyone down. You're politely reminding everybody that this is the way we conduct the meeting. Then the next really big point. Guess what? If you started on time, if you've had an agenda, if you stuck to that agenda, you haven't gone back and helped people understand what you've been talking about for the first 10 or 15 minutes because they were late, then you're going to finish not necessarily on time, but earlier. Finish the meeting earlier? Oh my gosh. We were supposed, the meeting schedule said, the agenda said a 10 o'clock finish, and it's now 9:45. How do the people feel when you've had them in the meeting and you finish early? They feel pretty good. What then is their mindset, their reaction when you invite them to the next meeting? They will be on time, they will be prepared, because they know that you respect their time, they know that you conduct the meetings efficiently, and that you're likely to finish the meeting early. Now, what happens if during the course of the meeting, there is more to discuss in the time that you had allocated? And that's not unreasonable, but it's coming close to the scheduled finish time. Oh my gosh, you're looking at your watch. Yeah, you've got to be careful of the time. Here's what is important. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd scheduled this meeting to finish at 10 o'clock. Because of the amount of input that we've had from everybody, we do need more time to cover everything effectively. So I've got a question. Are you able to continue now for another 15 minutes, or should we schedule another meeting tomorrow to finish off? I guarantee everybody will likely say, no, let's do it in 15 more minutes. We'll do it that way. Okay. You're honouring their time. You're not just charging forward and continuing the meeting because it needs to be finished. Please respect their time and they will respect yours. They will come to the meeting on time. They will be prepared. They will be giving information in the meeting that's valid, and you're going to get a far more effective meeting. And you're not going to waste their time. Respect them. Say, is it okay that we spend another 10 or 15 minutes? By the way, it needs to be 10 or 15. If you say 15 minutes more, that's what they agree to, and you're not finishing in time, then you need to say, I'm sorry, we all agreed on a 15-minute extension. We haven't clearly got it because there's a lot to be talked about. Let's schedule a meeting for a week's time or tomorrow. Don't abuse the other person's time just because you think you're important, just because you think that what you're talking about is critical, unless you explain to the people the importance of going forward and making sure that by you extending that meeting time, that you're not devaluing or abusing their time. You're not going to make them late for the next meeting. No, you don't want to do that. There's other ways of doing this. And number 7 is really important. Send a bullet point summary after the meeting. Bullet points. That's all it needs to be. Those bullet points should say, this is the point that we covered. Boom, boom. And for each bullet point, you should include an action so that this was discussed and what it is. And then say, Ali is going to follow up, or Mariam is going to provide a report for the next meeting. Put that in. When the person whose name is on the list gets that email, which has the bullet points after the meeting, then they know that they've got to react accordingly. I guess I'm not so much in favour of minutes of the meeting. Sometimes minutes are important because they need to record officially the information that's been discussed. But a bullet point response after the meeting reminds people of what they was talked about. It reminds people of what was agreed, and it reminds people who is taking action on certain points as agreed. That's important. It's really easy to conduct effective meetings. It really is. It just requires an approach of some discipline where you say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to conduct meetings. And people will start to come on time, be there on time, be prepared, knowing that you will do all you can to conduct a meeting where everybody can share their ideas and then finish, if not on time, then a little earlier. So we're then going to really love meetings. I was kind of joking when I said up front, we all love meetings. Most people don't. You need to make that meeting effective for everybody. So here's a little statement that I really believe is very important. And I talk to managers in my programs about this. I call this asking one time. So what does asking one time mean? Well, let me approach it this way. I say to managers or team leaders, when you've asked one of your team members to do something for you as part of their job or something that you need done, how often do you have to remind them to do what you've asked them to do? You know, the response that I get from everybody is, I have to do it all the time. Oh, I have to remind them. Let me make this really clear. Your position description, your job description, I'm really sure does not say point number 15 or point number 17 and remind your staff to do what they are required to do. No, it doesn't say that. But it does say you've got to get the work done, of course, and you've got to supervise them, of course. Some managers and some team leaders believe that their sole purpose is to remind their staff to do what they're required to do. No, it's not. I want to help you manage your time and help them manage their time. So I have this process that I call asking one time. It moves you away from micromanaging, and it sets up a process where when you ask a team member to prepare a report or whatever it is that you require for them, that they know that you need that report by next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So it's important to address this at the start and say, I want to make your life easier. I want to make my life a bit easier. And I want to give you more time in your day because I know you're busy. It's also going to give me time. I am not going to remind you to do something that I've asked you to do. Is that okay? Yeah, good. So here's what I need you to do. This is the project. This is the report. I need you to cover these elements in the report. What I want is a report that covers these elements. I know that you'll come and talk to me if you need any help to get this done, won't you? Yes. I need this done by next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Is that okay? Yes. Guess what? There's a pretty good chance that they will have it delivered to you by 10 o'clock next Tuesday. If they don't, then you have a polite conversation with them and say, remember, Ahmed, I asked you to get this report done and you said you'd have it done for me today by 10 o'clock. It's now 11 o'clock and I haven't got it. Has there been a problem, Ahmed? Oh. Well, Ahmed, what do you need to do to make sure that I get it on the time that I asked for? This is a behavioural change for many people, asking one time, but I say it'll take a lot of stress out of your life, it'll save you a lot of time, and it will make your team far more productive because you're not standing over their shoulder all the time, micromanaging. You are empowering them to finish the report in time for you, and you're empowering them to come and talk to you if they need any assistance. But you're not standing over their shoulder, wasting your time and theirs. Ask one time. It's easy to put into practice. Just takes a little bit of practice up front. Take accountability. What's accountability? Well, accountability is related to what you say and what you do. Take accountability for what you say. If you say to someone, we'll have a meeting next week, you've got to be accountable for that. If you say to someone, I will have this report to you by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you've got to do that. People around me, people who work with me and people who know me, know that if I say something, that's it. Halas, I will do it. I've got a friend who knows that if we set up a meeting at any time, and we kind of joke about it now, she says, if we set the meeting for the 23rd of March, 2023, I will be there unless otherwise I've let her know that there's been another problem. You don't have to remind me. I set that time. I'm there. I'm accountable for my time and my actions. I want the people around you to be accountable as well. So you've got to be accountable for what you say. You've got to be accountable for what you do. Do what you say you will do. I'm not going to quote the Arabic, but it's because people say, what language is that? When I'm quoting it from the Quran. But there is a verse it's a part of the Quran which is very much along this line. Do what you say you will do. This is going to save you time. People will trust you a lot more. People will recognize how much you value your own time and how much you value their time. And you've got to be accountable for managing your time. You take responsibility. Yeah, but my manager. Yeah, but the CEO. Yes, but the board. Here's the deal. You can blame anybody. You've got to take responsibility. And here's a little flavour of my Arabic. So stand by. You cannot be saying, tal bacha. How was that? Is that okay? You can't be saying, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. You've got to do it when you say you're going to do it. You've got to be saying, you've got to do it now and be accountable for you in that. So let's look at pressure, because I did say this is about time pressure. What's pressure? Is pressure a good thing or not a good thing? I'm going to say that pressure overall is a pretty good thing. The alternative to pressure is stress. I'm stressed. I can't do it. I'm stressed. Here's a simple analogy. I think it's simple anyway, because I'm a simple guy. Airline pilots, when they're flying you, when you used to fly so much more than you do now, airline captains will tell you that the most pressure they are under is when they are landing the aircraft or when they're taking off. It's pressure. I'm okay with the captain of the aircraft under pressure because I know that he or she is going to be focused and concentrating on what they have to do. Their critical thinking is going to be more effective because of a little bit of pressure. Of course, it is limited in time. You know, there's a time limit in terms of landing the aircraft and taking off. It's not for 4 hours. I'd never want to hear the captain of an aircraft saying it is stressful to land the aircraft. No, thank you. I want you to be in control, not stressed. Stress, it's not good. I want you to avoid spreading stress. I'm trying to avoid some of the new vocabulary that's come into our lives now. I want to avoid the word super spreader, but you may have heard it. Some people spread stress to others by the way they expect other people to behave. Take responsibility for the pressure that you have. Don't let it become stress and don't let it impact on others. So here's some quick tips on managing pressure. Clearly understand what is required. When you clearly know what the objective is and what you have to do, clearly understand that, there's going to be far less pressure. It's like the analogy I gave you of the pilot landing the aircraft. Sure, there might be something, might be a crosswind that he's not expecting, but the more he understands what's there in front of him, because of the instruments that he's reading and because of all the circumstances around him, he is clearly able to do the best job. So understand what is required. Plan. Planning is key to reduce any pressure. It's also going to give you a far better time outcome. Involve others effectively, and I stress the word effectively. I don't want you to pass on to other people, the people you're leading, any stress or pressure in what has to be done. The way you talk to them is really important. A lot of the work that I do is in leadership, and I say that as a leader, what you do and what you say brings out the best in the people you're leading. It's as simple as that. What you do and what you say brings out the best. Now, when I'm talking about involving others effectively, we know, and I'm getting off the time aspect a little bit, we know that people will say that they perform at their best when they are challenged. In fact, 96% of people say they perform at their best when they're challenged. But this is involving them effectively in the circumstances that you're dealing with. Number 4, look after the most important person. I know you love your mother or your father, but the most important person is not, it's not your mother. No, the most important person in your life is you. As a counsellor, let me say this, you cannot look after your dear mother unless you look after you. You are important. Take time for you. You might have a lot of pressure, there might be a lot going on. Take time just for you to reflect on the day, to reflect on your achievements, to think about what a great job you did. Take time for you, to go for a walk. Turn off the mobile, turn off the emails, turn off the WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever. Turn off the electronics. So what? Give yourself time. Don't be a slave to the electronic world that we live in. Yes, mobiles and emails and WhatsApp can save us time. We can sometimes become a little pressured by those. Spend time with the important people in your life. One of the great things about Fridays here, I don't have to tell you, you know what the great things about Fridays are here. You're spending time with your family. But it doesn't just have to be Friday, and it doesn't just have to be your family who are the important people in your life. They could be the team that you're leading. So find time especially. Exercise for you. It's going to help you manage your mind. It's going to help you manage the time pressure. So that is really important. Practice mindfulness and meditation to help you. Now, as a result of my being with you today, I want you to write down 4 actions. That's 4 actions that you're going to take to improve your time management and pressure. My purpose is to help people make a positive difference in their lives. I want you to make a positive difference in your life by managing time more effectively. I want you to make a positive difference in the lives of the people around you, but make sure that you look after you. Remember, when it comes to time particularly, you are in control. No, it's the CEO. No, you have more control than you believe that you have. And don't let that stress or that pressure affect your management of time. So I need to say right now, thank you. You've given me time today. Your time is valuable. I honour that time, and I want to say thank you from my heart for spending this time with me. I've gone a little bit over the time that we'd allocated, but I really hope that this has been a valuable time that you have spent and that you're going to make a difference positively in your life and the lives of those around you.